Hey guys, what's up? 2-Bit Jesus here, and let's continue our journey in reviewing Turok games. And what are we reviewing today, you ask? Well, I already kind of gave it away at the last, review. Maybe you should go back, watch that review, and then you would know, or just wait just 2 seconds and I'll tell you. Today we are reviewing Turok Evolution on the original Xbox. Let's jump right in. Turok Evolution is a first-person shooter developed by Acclaim Studios Austin and published by Acclaim Entertainment. It was developed for the PS2, original Xbox, GameCube, and PC. Released only 2 years after Turok 3, it came out in the fall of 2002. Turok Evolution doesn't have much in the way of tidbits. I can tell you from what I've been able to find online is this game had a rushed development. This was around the time Acclaim had lost the license to make Mortal Kombat games for consoles, as Midway had moved on from making arcade games and focused solely on making console games themselves. Losing the Mortal Kombat license put a significant hole in their profits, and so they leaned heavily on Acclaim Studios Austin to keep shoveling out Turok games among other titles. Interestingly enough, with Turok Evolution, they seem to have gone for a prequel that was very popular in the early aughts. Also, with a rushed development, and as you guys saw in my previous review, Turok 3, Shadow of Oblivion, there was a lot to unpack after the ending of that game, so it would make more sense to go back and just tell the origin story of the first Turok without all the sci-fi, universe-ending story and levels that you would have to create. Just good old-fashioned Lost Land dinosaur hunting / dinozoid hunting adventures. A sequel to Turok Evolution was in the works, but I think as you guys can tell now, 20 some odd years later, they never made that sequel. Turok Evolution's sequel was actually supposed to tie together Turok Evolution with the original Turok on the N64 and PC. Alas, we'll never get to see that. With these tidbits done, let's see if Acclaim Austin Studios' last entry in the Turok series is worthwhile. The top line for this portion of the review is the gameplay is mediocre. The controls are actually pretty decent. We finally have a controller that is dual analog sticks, so we no longer have that clunkiness that came with the original 3 Turoks. My only main issue with it is we seem to have kept the same little small aiming reticle that was in the previous games, where by this point, first-person shooters had evolved enough to give a much better aiming reticle than this old mid-1990s style of first-person shooters. Your weapon assortment isn't bad. You got some of the basics returning, tomahawk, your bow. You got some new additions too. You have this pistol that can also double as a sniper rifle, which is pretty sweet. The shotgun returns. It's slightly different, but just like Turok 3 Shadow of Oblivion, the shotgun is very weak. It's weird. I don't know why they went with this route of making a really weak shotgun. I get it if you're shooting from far away and it doesn't have an effect, but there'd be times where I was up close and personal and I would hit the bad guy with a shotgun and they wouldn't die. They'd take just a shotgun to the face and still be attacking. Makes no sense. Rocket launchers come back as well as some other more devastating weapons. Some of the weapons are missing though. You don't have the little throwing blade anymore, and the cerebral bore is also gone. I believe the pinnacle of the series as it pertains to weapons had to have been Turok 2 because we've been on a steady decline since Turok 3 when it comes to weapon selection. Now, enemies have also gone back to a back-to-basics form. You actually get to fight dinosaurs again. It's been a while since we've done that, but they're here and you get to fight them. There's also monkeys that attack you, and you have, I guess, what they call dinozoids. They'll be your main enemy throughout most of the game. You'll run into dinozoids a lot. They're your basic soldier-type unit. You have snipers, You have big tank, heavy weapon characters, and also your basic soldier with a basic rifle, what have you. They will be your main enemy. They seem to be dumb as bricks. Sometimes they just walk right into my line of fire. Other times they actually remember to hide. And sometimes when they hide, it's not that well. A cool little feature they put in this one is you can disarm your enemy and they'll surrender, and you can either execute them or capture them. They've added an on-rails shooter mode to this game. You will be flying a pterodactyl armed with a machine gun and rockets. And that's pretty ridiculous when it comes out of my mouth, but also it's pretty cool looking when you think about it. This mode is poorly designed, and if you go online, you'll find a lot of people ripping this game for this section of the game. I get why they created it. They wanted to break up the action of the game in between the regular levels, but it just goes on for far too long. Controls are mediocre at best, and a lot of times very janky and not very well responsive. You will crash or die a lot of times, and it's really not your fault. It's just that the mechanics have been poorly designed and not polished. The boss battles are also not as great as the previous titles. I had fun with some of them. The flight level where you're fighting the giant dinosaur, that was okay. And then the final battle with your main antagonist, that one was okay too. But again, none of them really stand out and are memorable, which, if you're going to have a boss fight, you got to make it memorable. You just do. Level design is also subpar. I mean, it's not terrible. It's your very linear point A to point B setup. It's just that it's extremely long. Levels are broken up into different sections, in between loading screens essentially. And some levels have a really good rhythm, like there'll be 4 sections to a level. Other levels, it's like 8 sections, and it goes on for far too long. And by the time you're bored with that level and you're ready for something different, you find out you're only halfway through. And they could have tightened up, shortened the levels, and that would have made the level design slightly better. You can really tell that Turok Evolution could have done with some more time in the oven. So unfortunately, their unpolished gameplay gets 1 bit.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4. Turok Evolution sound is another mediocre outing. The ambient sounds are pretty well done. The voice acting, again, is very campy, but for this era of video game voice acting, that's to be expected. Sound effects are done decently, but on the whole, sometimes I noticed some slight compression to the sounds, and I don't know if it's because they were recycling sound effects from the N64 games, or they just didn't have time to finish the sound either. The music is unremarkable. I honestly can't remember a single track from this game, save for the intro soundtrack, which went on for far too long. Sound gets a mediocre 1 bit.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
Dangerous.
He's dying, John. He's no threat to anybody here.
We thought it best to summon you.
Indeed.
Our healers have tended to him day and night, but he continues to weaken.
I see. It is not your time to die. When he wakes, bring him to me.
Visually, this game looks pretty darn well. Now, granted, I would expect more from the original Xbox, but I get it, they're porting this game to other titles too. PS2, I'm looking at you, which had very anemic hardware, so there's only so much you could do to try to reach parity with each different version of the game. The gore in the game looks awesome. The blood splatter, the body dismemberment, it's all here and it all looks great. The water effects actually look pretty darn good in this game too. I'm always a sucker for water effects. The CGI full motion videos, though, look very dated. I actually prefer the in-game graphics over those CGI videos. The facial animations in particular look a bit rough. The story starts many years before the first Turok game. The opening to the game is a basic rundown of the backstory of Turok Evolution. We see a Native American village being attacked by Bruckner, the main antagonist to this game. He kills what appears to be the village chief just before he activates a wormhole. Bruckner is then attacked by our boy Talset returning from Turok 1. They are both sucked into the wormhole, but not before Turok takes off Bruckner's arm. When Talset enters the Lost Land, he is nearly killed by a great fall. He's found by villagers who bring him to Tarkeen, a wizard dude who's been cursed to find Turok, the Son of Stone. Talset rejects this title, but is roped into the villagers' struggle against the Slegs, who are ruled by Lord Tyrannus. At one point in the story, Talset frees a bunch of villagers and their wise man from a prison and runs into Bruckner, who has a brand new shiny metal arm and, as it turns out, is working for Lord Tyrannus. Talset then spends the rest of the story trying to prevent Lord Tyrannus and Bruckner from conquering the Lost Land. That includes flying around on your pterodactyl blowing shit up, causing a city to fall into a canyon so it can't be conquered by Lord Tyrannus, and then finally destroying Lord Tyrannus' secret weapon, a long-necked dinosaur strapped to the neck with weapons. I'm starting to think that Turok is not the son of stone, but the son of war and destruction. Jesus, that's excessive. All this culminates in a final showdown between Talset and Bruckner. Bruckner, as it turns out, is riding a mechanized T-Rex. Pretty badass. In the end, Talset gets the better of Bruckner and gets his revenge on his people. He doesn't kill Bruckner directly, but he walks away and Bruckner is eaten by little compies. Our story leaves us with a cliffhanger. Talset finally does take the mantle of Turok, Son of Stone, and the defender of the Lost Land, but also Lord Tyrannus is still out there and planning revenge. And I forgot to mention this, but everything I just said about the plot, you can get from the intro to the game, you can get from the ending cutscene of the game, and you can get from a couple of loading screens and like the handful of cutscenes that are in-game. Honestly, the plot and story are about roughly, I would say, 2 to 5% of this game. There's not a whole lot of story here. I had to piece it all together just to give you an idea of the story. To get all of this, you would have to slog through hours upon hours of gameplay just to get this little snippet of stuff. It's really poor game design in this era of video games. Story was actually becoming very important in this era, and I feel like Turok Evolution kind of went more old school, where they're like, here's a beginning cutscene, now enjoy the gameplay, have fun. Oh, we'll give you a little outro cutscene and a little, tease as to the next Turok game, and it's honestly bullshit when you're thinking of the 6th gen of video gaming. This is the same era that gave us Halo, Metal Gear Solid 2, so a little bit more dialogue and cutscenes, and maybe also shortening the levels, would have went a long way to making this more of a banger of a story than it is. So how does all of this come together? Well, it's mixed. You have some really good gore effects in this game. The gore actually looks amazing for this era of video games. And the in-game graphics look pretty good too. Though the FMV, especially the animation in the FMVs in this game are rough. And then again, the story being lackluster, I'm going to have to give presentation 1 bit.
I'd buy that for $1.
Out of 4.
I accept my destiny.
Your choice is made. I pray that the path you have chosen, the path of war, will not consume you.
Turok Evolution should be called Turok De-Evolution. Get it? Get it? Because it's a step back from, instead of going forward, they went back. I still got it. I'm a funny guy. But seriously, folks, it is a step back from where Shadow of Oblivion left off. In fact, one important key to the progression of this series was the more story-driven linear parts of Shadow of Oblivion, and they completely threw that out the window. I mean, they kind of half-assed did it with the giving you little tidbits here and there in the loading screens, but that's bullshit. If you have to give people the story in the loading screen, like, you could have put cutscenes in there. And I get it. The people who were making the game, they were working hard. This is higher up decisions that were made for this title. And honestly, you know, you should have let the game bake in the oven just a little bit longer. And maybe we would have gotten more cutscenes, more explanation, maybe more polished gameplay, you know, all of that stuff. But hey, you got to rush this game out to market and make that profit, that dollar, right? And then, you know, close the studio like you did, and then all the people who worked hard on the game get unemployed and have to go find another job. So, yay, capitalism. It's great. So that's what happened. Anyway, this will be the final game for Iguana Studios, or I guess Acclaim Austin. And unfortunately that it is, because they gave us some awesome games with this series. Anyway, we're here for my final verdict. And my final verdict for Turok Evolution on the original Xbox, and let's go ahead and throw the GameCube and the PS2 in there as well, as a recommended look for the casual and hardcore collector. This game really isn't anything special. It's not going to really add anything to your collection unless you're just looking at collecting all of the Turok games. If that's the case, then yeah, this will definitely be worth your while, but everyone else, I'm not really feeling it. And if you're somehow looking to get this game, it's dirt cheap. It's around $6 depending on its condition. I believe the GameCube version is a little bit more expensive, but you're looking at spending less than $10 to get this game. And with that, we end the review of Turok Evolution. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys thought of this title, and as always, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and ding the bell. That way you don't miss a thing we are doing here on the channel. And I will see you guys on the next review, where we're going to see Disney's crack at the Turok video game egg, if you will. I'll see you guys in that review. As always, stay safe and play on.